Let's bring Geoff Mosher in, who is sans mustache himself. I have never seen Mosher rock the duster, but you might look good with a duster, Moshe.
I don't think anybody wants to find out, to be honest with you. It's not my. In college, I had the sideburns that connect to the goatee.
Oh, wow!
That's about as far as I was going to take that.
That's a good look there. All right.
Yeah, it was all right.
All right. We got a lot to get into. I like your story. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Geoff Mosher, FanRag Sports, wrote about one of the key reasons, PT. You remember we talked about one thing the Eagles do that gets overlooked, and that's the fact that they tackle. It's unbelievable how overlooked that is in this league. But, Geoff, your story hits it on the nose, man. This is a team that will allow you to catch the ball because they believe they will bring you down.
That's basically it. They will, do they want to give up passes? No, but you know that Jim Schwartz, particularly while Ronald Darby was out and he had to play Mills, the rookie Rasul Douglas, Jalen Watkins at times, he would play off coverage. And I know a lot of times fans would get agitated. They see like an 8 to 10 yard gain. Why are you playing off? Why are you playing off? But as they got comfortable with it, the one thing that they were able to do is get that great pass rush, get the quarterback to get rid of the ball quickly across the middle for the 5 or 6 yard gain or whatever on first down, and then just stop them right then and there. And I would say even more recently, they've done a good job of tackling and swarming so quickly that they're not even giving up the 5 or 6 yard gain. Look at how the Cowboys tried to attack Jalen Mills with Des Bryant. He tried to attack both of those guys, Darby and Mills, but what's the signature play from that game? It's Mills basically dragging Bryant down by his wrist, a great arm tackle for a minimal gain. If you guys remember, Chris Collinsworth was like, going gaga over the Cowboys doing that and not ignoring the actual part that Mills played that thing perfectly.
Yeah, it's been all year, too. I mean, Nigel Bradham, I think, is having, if not a Pro Bowl year, maybe even a all-pro type of season. He's been excellent. He tackles just about all the time. The secondary guys, that has been really the difference between the 7-9 team last year, the 7-9 Chip Kelly team his last year. Those teams constantly, Moshe, gave up a big play because a guy caught a ball, broke a couple tackles, and then, boom, went down the sideline. You saw that routinely in those 2 seasons.
And I would say you even saw it more than you would like in the first 4 weeks of the season, first 5 weeks. If you go back and look at some of the big plays the Eagles gave up, it wasn't the wide receiver beating the corner down the sideline. It was the 75-yard slant to Sterling Shepard. It was the Keenan Allen crossing route over the middle. There was a 25-yard touchdown, I think, in the opener by Chris Thompson. That was your brother there, Pete, on a pass to the flat. And after that Chargers game is when it really started to change. I think I was doing the stats from week 1 to week 4, right? The first 4 games, they had given up about 6 or 7 plays of 30 or more yards. Since then, they've given up 1 play of more than 30 yards. And in the last 3 weeks, and you guys know they went the whole month without giving up a touchdown last month, but in the last 3 weeks, they haven't given up a play longer than 20 yards.
Geoff Mosher with us
here. You're starting to see the makings. You're starting to see the makings of an elite defense, and we'll find out really in these next 2 games. But I think it's kind of under-discussed how good they've becoming on defense.
One thing we haven't heard is that term X plays. That play is out. Right. That term is out now because they tackle. They don't give up the. And another thing where we used to hear X plays, the corners turn and see the football. That's another big difference is these guys. Nolan Carroll, how many weeks did you say, Nolan Carroll, turn your head? The technique is so much better with this secondary.
Mike, you just hit it on the head. I think that that's also been kind of an under-discussed thing about the corners. It's not only that they're a little bit of an upgrade over the Bradley Fletchers of the world or the Nolan Carrolls, but they play the ball in the air much, much better. That finally the coaching is sinking in, and I think it's also a mix of having better talent too. But even Jalen Mills is a 7th-round pick. I mean, he comes from LSU, which is a factory for NFL defensive backs. So he's been coached well before he even got to the NFL level. Go look at the play that Ronald Darby makes on Des Bryant again. I'll go back to the Cowboys game in the end zone. You could say it might be pass interference, and certainly it was a 50-50 type play. They both had their hands on each other. But the one thing you notice is that Darby is turned around playing both the ball and the receiver at time and not just back to the ball. And in this era, you'll get that call, A, if you're a pretty decent corner like Ronald Darby is, but B, as long as you're turned and playing the ball, you'll get a little bit more leniency from the referees. If he had his back turned and did the same exact thing, I guarantee you they would have flagged him.
Jeff, how much improvement do you think, because they also have depth at the corner position now, how much improvement do you think Rasul Douglas made by sort of being forced into service and having to learn on the fly?
Yeah, I think he made a lot of improvement. Although I will say that I think some of the things that you've seen him do in the NFL, which is play physical, occasionally be a little bit grabby, but also, what did he have, 3 interceptions, even in his limited time? So that was what he was known for at West Virginia, just kind of having a nose for the ball. Or he should have had that interception in their last game against Chicago, right? That he had the pick and went out of his hands. So that's what he's known for. That's what he does. That's why they felt that he was a good fit for this system. And, he's a strong – they're all strong physical guys. And, we'll find out more about Darby. He's the one that's a little bit shorter, 5'11", and everything like that. But he certainly played tough in the last 2 games.
That was the one that led to the electric slide dance that then turned out that they shouldn't have been dancing because it wasn't even an interception.
Right. So then they got to do it again, like 3 plays later. Yeah.
Hey, one thing, too, on that defensive side of the ball, you talk about the pass rush. My question, and maybe this is something that when Schwartz speaks again next week, but once, in like the NBA, when you get to the playoffs, you shorten that rotation a little bit. You go from maybe 9 guys down to 8. Do you think he shortens that rotation come playoffs, or do you think he's going to just keep rolling with the 8 guys, or do you think his best guys get more snaps when it matters more?
I don't see that changing one bit, Mike. I think that's the strength of the defensive line, the fact that they can keep fresh. The style that they play, which is one gap, get up the field as fast as you possibly can get up the field, takes a lot out of you. I mean, it's hard to play that style of defense as a lineman and do that 100% of the game. So I don't think that Jim will – I don't know who he would put on the bench longer. I mean, Derek Barnett comes off the bench and he leads the team in combination of quarterback hits and hurries. Vinny Curry, I think, leads the team in tackles for a loss. You're never taking Fletcher Cox off the field no matter what. You're never taking Brandon Graham off the field no matter what. So I think that they're just Chris Long has been a really good – now, Chris doesn't have like 6 or 7 sacks or anything, but he's part of that number one, what I call their NASCAR line, or their number one pass rushing line, which has Barnett and Long on the outside, Graham and Cox on the inside. That's their most commonly used third and medium or third and long defense. And I don't think that's going to change at all. Well, it's kind of like if it's not broken, don't fix it, or try to fix it thing.
Yeah, definitely depth on the defensive line. Geoff Mosher with us. Hey, Jeff, how important has Lane Johnson been then on the flip side to the success of the offense? It seems that he's undervalued, and, Mike and I have gone back and forth before about what the team's record is with him in the lineup versus when he's not in the lineup. But how about his part in the success of the offense?
I think there's just 2 things that really stand out about Lane. One, and this is the more obvious one, but that he has to play against the best pass rusher, even at right tackle. Von Miller, DeMarcus Lawrence, Jason Pierre-Paul, the Giants, Joey Bosa, all line up over right tackle. He'll have to play Khalil Mack on Christmas. These are guys that move around a little bit, but generally line up against right tackle. So he is going up against the number 1 pass rusher, and this has been a year where he's played probably, 4 of the top 5 pass rushers in the game right now, and Carson Wentz has gotten better week after week and taken less hits week after week, and certainly when he does get hit, it's usually not on Lane's guy. But the number 2 thing that's really significant about that, guys, is that not only is he doing it, but he has to do it by himself on an island because they need to give more protection to Halapoulivaati Vaitai, who gets a little bit of a chipping help from an extra tight end or a running back. That's where they need to allocate their, help resources. And so what they really need and ask and demand of Lane is that he not only, keep these pass rushers off Carson, but he do it by himself. And, I asked Frank Reich about it recently and wrote a story about it for FanRag, and basically Frank said, I don't know if there's an offensive tackle in the entire league that's playing at a higher level than Lane Johnson or being asked to do as much as Lane Johnson is, and has responded to that request by playing practically flawlessly.
Geoff Mosher, you can check out his Eagles coverage, FanRag Sports, and you talk about last game. LeGarrette Blount was the top ball carrier again, 16 for 97, and a lot of people just anticipated that as Ajayi got more acclimated with the offense, that he would take over that role. But do you see that changing? Is Blount the guy that will be the main ball carrier this season anyway?
I don't know, Mike. I think it's still a week-to-week thing. I think there's a chance that against a certain team or a certain matchup, you might see Ajayi get more carries than LeGarrette Blount, but there's a chance that you might not. I think it's very important what they've got going on right now is great team chemistry and great camaraderie. And one of the unique things about Doug Peterson, the players will tell you, is that he is maybe even more honest and more forthright with situations and players, especially if so many guys on one-year deals, than even Andy Reid was. And Doug has basically told this team recently, if you're on a one-year contract and you're worried about where you're going to be next year and it may not be here with the Eagles, that's okay. Just go out and play your best, because if everybody wins, you will win in the end. You'll get a contract somewhere else. And I think a lot of head coaches would be afraid to say that to players in the locker room and not keep it in the confines of the team, but even talk about uncertain futures. But Doug is very transparent and honest. And I say that because he told LeGarrette Blount that you are still our starter when they brought Jay Ajayi in here. If he had done that for one game where LeGarrette's the starter and then all of a sudden, by the Chicago game or the Dallas game, Ajayi's getting 20 carries and Blunt's getting 5 or 6, then he's a liar and he's dishonest, right? So I think it's not just to be honest, but I think he was really meant it, and he knows he has a great running back rotation, and LeGarrette Blount has deserved the carries that he's gotten so far, and so I'm not sure that's going to really change that much.
Jeff, we talk about guys on one-year deals, and I asked you about Lane Johnson being undervalued because I'm also thinking about Alshon Jeffrey maybe being undervalued. He's not flashy, but his touchdown numbers are pretty good. Has he been the perfect fit, though, for exactly what they wanted for this offense? It doesn't have a star or a WR1 per se, other than the star being the quarterback. That gets a lot of attention. But has Alshon Jeffrey been the perfect fit for this offense?
Well, he's certainly been an ideal fit, Pete. I mean, he's given them a big play element and a sure-handed element that they lacked last year with Dorial Green-Beckham and with, obviously, Nelson Aguilar going through his issues as an outside receiver. He hasn't been – I think a lot of people thought he would be kind of like a 1,400-yard receiver and 10 to 12 touchdowns. But what has made him ideal, Pete, that I didn't know about Alshon going into the year, and I don't think a lot of people did either, is that he hasn't complained. He hasn't been upset. He seems extremely happy. And, wide receiver isn't a position in the NFL where you hear a lot of guys being called selfless and team-oriented. You more hear diva and wants his money and wants his contract. And I had no idea what they were getting when they signed Alshon Jeffrey. And I think anybody would have logically assumed he might fit that whole diva role because he took a one-year deal, thinking, and the natural thought is, well, he wants more money than they're even offering him on the market. So I'm been surprised. I admit it. I didn't know much about him, but he's very much been a team guy. He's been, very praiseworthy of everybody on the team, and he says he's happy here and wants to be here. So from that regard, yes, he has made the offense better, and he has made the locker room work by basically checking his ego at the door.
Hey, are you surprised because Jeffrey's on a one-year deal and then LeGarrette's on a one-year deal that there isn't more of this poutiness and diva-esque attitude because, hey, I'm on a one-year deal. I might not even be here next year, that it has meshed so well?
I mean, I guess I'm not surprised because the team is 10-1, and I feel like it would be wrong to think that there aren't certain guys in that locker room that are wondering about their money or are wondering about their situation and maybe would speak up normally if things weren't going well. But they're 10-1. And who wants to be that guy, especially on a very deep team right now, who comes out and says, this ain't right, or I want more, or I'm looking, because that guy could easily be benched. There's really, as we talked about, there's really not one superstar on this team right now. So somebody who's going to step out of line and rock the boat is probably someone who's not going to be here. And so from that element, it doesn't surprise me. But I would say it is unique. It's unique to have this many guys on one-year deals and the team being as successful as it is. And then that is what's right now making it a very good and an ideal combination.
And talking about rocking the boat, Jeff, as the week is going on, are you more in the camp that Ajayi, you're buying what he's saying, that he was just disappointed that he coughed up the football, not in how he's being used?
Yeah, it's funny because there was a crowd in his locker today, and I was there, and not knowing who Ajayi is and spending a whole lot of time around him makes it difficult to be the reporter psychologist, because he stood in front of the locker today and he talked very, very eloquently and basically said, I was just frustrated by putting the ball on the ground and I'm not upset about carries, and everything he said was all well and good, and you could it's believable, or you could kind of go back to his history in Miami there and things he said and say, I'm not sure I'm buying that. That might be something he's saying right now because, like I said, the team is 10-1 and he doesn't want to rock the apple cart and yada yada. So I don't know, Pete. To be honest with you, I suspect that he would like more carries. I think that's obvious, but I also think that in talking to him, he does generally embrace the fact that he's on a good team and not in the mess that Miami is, and that he doesn't want to disrupt any of that.
Right.
So,
and I guess there's some sentiment that they potentially could not bring Blunt back next year and say, Ajayi, you're going to be that guy. You're going to be the guy next year. Just play along this year.
Yeah, I mean, right. I think that's the thing, that he knows that he's got a future at stake here. So it's very likely that next year Ajayi is your primary running back, your future running back, whatever you want to call it. I don't know if Blunt is back. However,
yeah,
there's enough running backs here on this roster, and everybody's playing well, where if he makes a stink, then and he's out of here, the Eagles will survive without him.
Geoff Mosher on Twitter at Geoff Mosher NFL. We haven't talked a lot about this particular game. Obviously, the Eagles are 10-1. They're certainly in control in the division, although they didn't clinch last night. No help from Washington. But do you think this is – a lot of people think this is the biggest test. Do you concur? Because I don't know. I love Russell Wilson, huge Wilson guy. This is not the same Seattle team for me. So I think them going to Carolina might have been a bigger test for them. Do you think this is their biggest one?
No, I would probably say, without obviously having them played yet, that Seattle game, that Carolina is a bigger test, especially the way Carolina had responded after that loss and is now a really good team, whereas some people thought after the Eagles beat them that they weren't that good.
Yeah.
But this Seattle team, I'm telling you, if the Eagles win this game by like 21 points, everybody's going to be saying, oh, that Seattle team's really not that good. Our narrative is always going to change. And here's the thing. The Eagles are beating everybody by a lot. They're really good. That's just the point. And it wouldn't shock me at all if they went to Seattle, where they're 6-point favorites, which should make your eyes fall out of your head just based on the history. And it wouldn't shock me at all if they came out of there with a 15, 20-point win. And I'm at the point where I'm not going to say, oh, that's because Seattle stinks or they're banged up or whatever. I'm just going to say this is how the Eagles are playing. They're playing very well, and they don't seemingly have a weakness that anybody has been able to exploit week after week after week, and that they've had to compensate in any way. They're just really, really good from top to bottom. And it wouldn't shock me if they won both of these games and both the games by double digits. I mean, I'm sure they'll play a close game at some point here or there. But the way they're playing right now, I think they're just playing really good, well. And I agree. I don't think Seattle, without all that power that they're used to in the Legion of Boom and with their offenses, they can't run the ball.
Right.
So what are they going to throw the ball 60 times a game? That's not a recipe for success.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, this to me is a bad matchup for Seattle with the inability to run the ball. And the way the Eagles can rush the passer, it's a tough spot for Seattle. We'll break it all down throughout the day. Coming up, John Clayton in about 10 minutes from now. But we want to thank Geoff Mosher from FanRag Sports at Geoff Mosher NFL for jumping on board. Thanks, pal.
You got it, guys. Talk to you next week.